James earns $110,000 a year, drives a shiny leased luxury electric car, and lives in a trendy downtown condo. On paper, everyone thinks he is on a fast track to becoming a millionaire. Then there is David. David makes an average salary of $58,000, drives a beat-up 2018 Corolla, and packs his lunch in plastic Tupperware every single day. If you ask anyone on the street who is winning the financial game, they will point to James without hesitating. But the cold, hard math reveals a terrifying reality. James is actually bleeding out with a total net worth of just $1,200. Meanwhile, David is quietly sitting on a massive compounding engine that is mathematically guaranteed to cross $1 million. This is the difference between the mirage and the foundation. Our modern consumer culture has trained us to look at an income as a status prop to be spent, rather than a capital tool to be deployed. We are taught to show off our success through what we buy today, which completely blinds us to our actual financial health. We measure wealth by the labels we can see, while the numbers that matter stay hidden. This video is about the specific behavioral shifts and mathematical thresholds that allow an average salary to build an invisible, unshakable million-dollar reality, while high earners play financial theater. If you want to know how the math actually works when the stage lights go down, let's look at what happens next. The trap begins on day one of a salary bump. When James got his promotion and started making six figures, his first reaction felt completely logical. He did not go out and buy a mansion, but he subtly shifted his baseline. He started shopping at the organic grocery store where a basket of food costs twice as much. He upgraded his gym to a premium club with eucalyptus towels. He moved into a slightly better zip code because he told himself he had earned the right to live well. This is the dopamine trap of the race. Every single upgrade feels smart and harmless in isolation. We tell ourselves it is just a reward for our hard work, but what we are actually doing is raising the cost of our existence. Before long, that new higher salary is fully spoken for, leaving exactly zero room for savings. Now contrast that with David. When David gets a modest raise at his average job, nothing about his outside life changes. He keeps his lifestyle exactly where it is. This choice creates a massive amount of quiet psychological friction. On the weekends, his friends invite him out to expensive brunches, and he has to face the social pressure of saying no or ordering just a coffee. Nobody applauds David when he decides to pack his lunch for the week. Nobody cheers for him when he automates a boring, invisible monthly transfer of $400 into a total market index fund. It is a lonely, unexciting path on day one. While James gets an immediate rush of good feelings from showing off his new lifestyle, David has to live with the discomfort of looking ordinary. But this is where the path splits, and the math starts moving in two completely different directions. If you look at the napkin math during the first 3 years, it seems like James is completely winning at life. His Instagram is full of weekend trips, nice dinners, and pictures of his sleek electric car. To the outside world, he is thriving. Meanwhile, David is sticking to his boring plan. He sacrifices, cooks at home, and saves exactly $500 every single month. After 3 long years of discipline, David opens his investment app, and the account balance shows roughly $20,000. This is where we hit the critical psychological danger zone. It is what financial experts call the flatline phase. David has given up 3 years of fancy brunches and luxury items, and all he has to show for it is $20,000. In a world where a modest house costs hundreds of thousands of dollars, that small savings account feels like a drop in the bucket. It feels like nothing is actually happening. Then, the first real wave of life friction hits. David is driving to work when his Corolla makes a terrible noise, or he goes to the dentist and finds out he needs an emergency root canal. The bill comes out to exactly $1,200. This is the moment that tests his raw emotional discipline. James would just slide a credit card across the counter and forget about it, buried under his mountain of debt. But for David, that $1,200 bill feels like a direct attack on his hard work. It threatens to completely break his momentum. To pay it, he has to watch his hard-earned balance drop, and a voice in his head tells him that saving money on an average salary is completely pointless. If he gives in to that voice, the wealth-building engine stops before it ever really starts. But if he pushes through this flatline phase, the math is about to reward him in a way he never saw coming. While David is fighting to keep his momentum, James is dealing with a set of silent killers. These are the hidden structural costs that quietly destroy the wealth of high earners every single day. The first is lifestyle creep taxes. When you buy a luxury car or rent a fancy condo, you do not just pay for the asset. You pay higher insurance premiums, higher maintenance fees, and higher property taxes. Next comes the burden of short-term financing. James buys his designer furniture and tech gadgets on payment plans, which means he is constantly paying interest on things that are losing value. On top of that, he suffers from modern subscription leakage. He has premium memberships for gyms, clothing boxes, and streaming services that drain his account drip by drip on autopilot. Even when he tries to invest, he chooses active mutual funds that charge a 1% to 2% fee, which quietly eats away his future growth before it even compounds. This behavior creates a massive trap that most people never see coming. According to recent financial data, over 1/3 of Americans earning between $75,000 and $100,000 regularly spend more than they earn. Even worse, a huge percentage of six-figure earners are living paycheck to paycheck. They are entirely trapped because they optimize their lives for appearance instead of building a real structural margin. James looks incredibly rich from the outside, but his financial engine has zero safety margin. If he misses a single paycheck, the whole house of cards collapses. He has built a high-maintenance life that requires constant active labor just to stay afloat. By choosing to feed the illusion of wealth today, high earners like James end up permanently borrowing from their future selves. By year 10, the math completely takes over, and the gap between the two paths becomes staggering. This is what experts call the hockey stick curve, where the numbers suddenly shoot straight up. For James, the last decade has been a treadmill. He still makes a high salary, but his overhead has grown right along with it. He needs his job just to survive his monthly bills. If he wants to take a break, change careers, or step away for a few months, he cannot afford to. He is entirely trapped in a loop of working to pay for a lifestyle he barely has time to enjoy. He has high income, but zero actual wealth. Meanwhile, David's boring strategy hits a beautiful breakout point. Because he kept his expenses low and consistently invested his money, his portfolio has quietly crossed a critical threshold of over $100,000. At this stage, something magical happens. The money in his investment account starts working harder than he does. In a good market year, a $100,000 portfolio growing at a normal historic rate can earn $8,000 to $10,000 completely on autopilot. Think about what that actually means. That growth is more than the total cash David physically saved out of his paycheck for the entire year. His money is now creating new money without him lifting a single finger. He has officially crossed the crossover point. While James is still trading his health and time for a paycheck to maintain his mirage, David's average salary has built a real, self-sustaining wealth engine that is growing entirely on its own. If I only showed you the downsides of a high salary, I'd be doing what every other finance influencer does. The truth is, earning more money is not a bad thing. In fact, a higher income is a massive accelerator for building wealth. It is much easier to save and invest when you have more cash flowing into your bank account each month. If James and David had the exact same mindset, James would build wealth much faster simply because he has more fuel for his investment engine. The problem is not the larger paycheck itself. The problem is what happens to our behavior when that paycheck grows. The core truth of wealth building comes down to one strict behavioral condition. The gap between what you earn and what you spend must remain aggressively wide. It does not matter if you make $50,000 or $250,000. If you spend 99% of what you bring in, you are still living on the edge of disaster. A high income only helps you become a millionaire if you refuse to let your lifestyle grow along with it. If you can earn a six-figure salary but choose to keep living like a college student, you can cut your timeline to financial freedom in half. But if you immediately spend every new dollar you make on upgraded cars and nicer clothes, your high income is completely wasted. True wealth is not about how much money you make. It is always about how much money you keep. Let us fast forward the math 20 years into the future to look at the final scoreboard. James is still working long hours, chasing his next raise just to keep up with his massive monthly bills. After 2 decades of high earning, his savings are nearly empty because he spent everything on things that lose value. Now look at David. By consistently investing $500 a month on his average salary, the compound interest engine has completely exploded. After 20 years, his boring portfolio has grown into a multi-million-dollar asset baseline. The numbers side by side are shocking. James has a beautiful garage full of old cars, while David is sitting on a massive fortune. At this checkpoint, the conversation completely shifts from basic savings to true systemic freedom. David no longer needs to worry about budgets or cutting back on groceries. He has achieved something much bigger: freedom from mandatory employment. He does not have to wake up and go to a job he hates just to survive, because his investments generate enough cash to cover his life. He now has access to institutional-grade options, like better investment funds and private deals that are only open to the wealthy. Most importantly, he has the deep peace of true, fully funded liquidity. If life throws a massive curveball, David can simply write a check and move on without a single worry. He used an average salary to buy the most valuable asset on earth: complete control over his own time. Now, it is time for you to take action so you do not fall into the same trap as James. I want to give you an immediate, practical exercise called the margin audit. Most financial gurus tell you to look at percentages, like saving 10 or 15% of your income. But percentages are abstract and easy to ignore. To build real wealth on an average salary, you need to strip away all those percentages and look at your true monthly structural overhead in cold, hard dollar amounts. To do this, sit down with a piece of paper and write out your exact costs for survival. Write down your rent or mortgage, your car payment, your insurance, and your basic utility bills. Do not include your savings goals or your fund money. Just write down the raw dollar amount it costs to keep your life running every single month. Look at that final number closely. Dollar figures hit your psychology differently than abstract percentages. When you see that it takes exactly $3,200 just for you to exist every month, you realize how much pressure you are putting on your paycheck. This audit shows you your true safety margin. If your structural bills are eating up almost everything you make, you are playing a dangerous game. Your goal is to find ways to shrink that raw dollar number, widen the gap, and automate the difference straight into your future. At the end of the day, the biggest lesson is a simple one. Real wealth does not have a logo. True financial freedom is entirely invisible to the public. It does not live in the brand of your car, the size of your house, or the label on your clothes. Instead, real wealth exists in things you can never see from the outside. It lives in your daily peace of mind, your automated investment systems, and the endless options you have when life changes. James spent his entire career buying props to show the world he was successful, but he ended up with nothing but stress. David kept his head down, ignored the noise, and used an average salary to build a quiet fortune. When you strip away all the social media posts, the fancy dinners, and the peer pressure, only one metric actually matters. It is the honest, private view of your bank accounts at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday night when the rest of the world is fast asleep. In that quiet moment, when nobody is watching and there is no audience to impress, you have to face the raw truth of your financial life. You have to look at what you actually own versus what you owe. As you move forward from this video, make it your ultimate goal to ensure that private view looks a whole lot better than the fake performance you show to society.